And do you usually just, when you're using Riverside, do you usually just go on live? Or do you set up events? Because there's this lag between like the go live blue button in LinkedIn and this the live button in Riverside.
I usually just go live, but that's probably because I'm doing the fly by the seat of my pants content creation versus the we're actually being completely. I mean, we're always being strategic, but we're not being 100% like, here's the best way to optimize it on the platform. No, let's just get it in people's ears. But
Yes,
yeah,
let's just hit publish, hit
yeah,
go live. And we are live here today. George,
yeah,
we went live last week to introduce your new superhuman framework.
yeah.
And my mom said it was the best Let's Build episode she's seen so far. She
Wow.
watches almost every day.
I'm
So,
humbled.
of course, I had to ask you if you wanted to turn it into a series so that we can actually, get into the details here.
Yeah, I love that we're going to do this as a series, Chris, because while I've baked out the framework, I'm super curious where my own mind is going to go on some of these topics based on the way that you ask questions around the thing. And so having a series where we're breaking down each one of the 10H elements that creates the overarching super human framework. And then in the future, even being able to go over things like, well, how does that impact choices or values or purpose or passion? And the fact that we're going to be looking at from multiple different lenses around these. I'm excited to see what happens over the next 10, 12 weeks.
Yeah, me too, man. So welcome everybody. We're here with George every Thursday at 8 a.m. Central. We're going to be breaking down this superhuman framework in various ways. We're going to, like George says, we're going to take it where it needs to go. That's what I love about, this format. And that's why, when you decide you're going to be live every week, you always have a chance to say, what's on your mind.
Yeah.
And you also can't maybe over prepare, which helps, lead to that organic conversation. And before we started, you're telling me you just had this epiphany about the kind of like foundation and overall, like definitely as I talk about a lot of HubSpot strategy on this show, like that kind of stuff is usually missing because we just want to start building the house. We just want to start building the thing. And we don't have concrete. The concrete's not even settled. Maybe it's like sandy under there, right? We're not setting ourselves up for success. So in terms of this framework, what just came to you is and why did you feel the need to like kind of define this foundation?
Yeah, it's interesting because, and by the way, I should say this because I think it's interesting for the viewers and listeners to know. And actually, two things before I answer your question. One, um, I hope that people will comment the crap out of the conversation that we're having with their own thoughts about what we're saying around these, because I'm super intrigued on where other people's brain goes based on what we're going to talk about. Okay. So while later in this episode, we're going to talk about holistic, Chris, I was gifted or cursed. I'm still trying to figure out which one it is. With this insatiable curiosity. Like, I'm just curious, like, how does this work with that? How does that work with this? And so I literally was sitting at a dog training session with my daughter last night. And I started to think about things that are important to me as a human. And I feel that are important elements to just life in general, but aren't part of the necessary like 10H elements. And for me, those were things like love. Like I have said so many times in so many different podcasts or so many different conversations, like the phrase lead with love. if you lead with love, it's going to lead you into like very magical, very inspiring, very fuel yourself up places. I've always focused on, or later in life, on like, what's my purpose? Why the frick am I here? Right. Um, if you've ever watched me speak, if you've ever tuned into a tutorial, sometimes I get a little passionate, right? And the other piece for me is I'll hit my head against a brick wall for forever till I break through. So I'm persistent. So I was literally sitting there and I'm like, oh man, I'm curious. Which, by the way, this is why I love AI assistants, because the human curiosity can be leveraged by AI assistants in the moment, real time, to get some creative ideas or thoughts or directions. So I'm literally sitting there at the dog training, and I put into Chat GPT, which I had created a GPT, by the way, a beyond your default coaching, where I trained it, and like anybody can go to the GPT store, search beyond your default, and you can start having conversations with this thing, because it's programmed on the framework. It's programmed on the mathematics of one methodology that I believe in. It's trained on who I am, how I believe, like all of these things that I'm creating as a mind map, as we're like fleshing out even deeper the superhuman framework, are being programmed into this GPT, so that, again, I can scale myself to help a world that can find a tool and use it. So I'm sitting there with my own GPT that I built, and I said, okay, I'm curious. I want to create a talking point before diving into the framework about love, purpose, passion, and persistence as the foundation of the framework, the foundation that the framework is built on. And Chris, here's what happened. Before we explore the superhuman framework and its intricate components, it's crucial to understand the foundational pillars on which this framework is built: love, purpose, passion, and persistence. These four elements are not just abstract concepts, but they very bedrock that supports and fuels every aspect of the framework. Love, the unifying force; purpose, the guiding compass; passion, the fuel for the journey; and persistence, the steadfast commitment. Now, there's a block of text for each of those, but I don't know about you. I'm getting freaking goosebumps just thinking about those four pillars and what it means for humans individually from a personal level, humans from a professional or team level, and companies or organizations from a cultural level. If I look at those three lenses and I throw in those 4 points, I go, woo, we be changing the world. Like, anyway, so that was like the foundational piece that then leads into the holistic, the happy, the helpful, the hustle. Like, those pieces lay on top of that. Like, these four pillars are almost like the table stakes that one has to focus on to then be able to implement the framework at the highest level for their life or for their organization.
That's it's powerful, man. And leading up to this is where, like, it's just, like it or not, all this stuff's connected, and we're gonna, like, that's the whole point of holistic in most cases, is like, if you don't understand the whole and everything involved, like, it's just so easy to go wrong. And as we were leading up to this, I've missed a couple days, of Let's Build. And it's been thinking through that, and like this commitment, like, am I gonna keep missing it?
Mm,
Like, and like, kind of, meanwhile, understanding that people talk about these content issues all the time, like, how do I fit it in? Like, so I know I'm not alone, so I just share it. I share a post about it, and it resonates. That, as we were leading up to this, I was like, hey man, does any of your H's cover like grace and self-compassion?
mm,
And because that was all I had. I only knew about the 10 H's. But when you describe that foundation, right? Uh, love, purpose, passion, and persistence. If I don't have that, I don't keep doing these shows, right?
Yeah.
Like the love of, and I, and that's where I love the AI assistants to help just like get you on the path to the language. I mean, there's always times like that, and they're my favorite when it just comes back and just like nails it like on the first try. It usually
Yeah.
means you've created a good GPT.
Oh,
So congrats to that.
I'm telling you, dude, it's I got nerdy with it, by the way. I because we're on a business piece of content that we're creating right now, a business conversation. Some people in the ecosystem might know Nico. He built HubSpot Harry the HubSpot helper. I reached out to him because I was trying to figure out how to like build the best thing that I could build, and went down this nerdy road of like chunking and optimizing and JSON files and like all sorts of stuff to like get this thing to be on a bedrock or foundation of like being awesome. And so again, it's like, well, George, why are you spending extra time to build this thing for people to use? Like, why are you spending the extra time to build this for you to use? And I'm like, cause it's important. Cause I feel passionate about it. Because I feel it's part of my purpose. Because I love humans and I want them to enable themselves to love who they are and what they're doing in life. That's why I'll sleep a little less and build more on the superhuman framework, the foundation elements of it, and everything that goes around it. Which, by the way, Chris, you use some words. And by the way, this is one thing that my brain is going crazy at. Like I'm paying attention to words that people are saying or words that I'm seeing and then dissecting. So you said grace. And what was the other term you used?
Self compassion.
Self-compassion. Okay. Go ahead, move on. Questions, whatever we want to do. I'm doing something in the background as we're doing this.
Yeah. Well, related to that, like, so when you, like, just a few minutes ago, we were talking about the foundation. I'm like, okay, what am I going to say about love? And now, like, that response, and this is why I love just like, I love sharing like what you just did, these exchanges, like with people, like the prompt and the answer. Like, there's so much value in understanding what's happening here. But when it comes back with unifying force for love, I was like, okay, that's it. I don't even need to think about how to work it in, right? But like in terms of like why I keep going and what the goal is, right? Without the will to unify this ecosystem, and that's kind of broken in some spots right now, right? Without the purpose of teaching people from a strategic perspective, um, without being super passionate about it because I've been experiencing this training and knowledge gap since 2010. Uh, and just, March 18th, I said, okay, I'm showing up every day. Like, I don't, like, I'm not going to worry about analytics. Like, it's just showing up every day is my measurement stick. Because if I can't do that, it doesn't matter how great the content is. Like, consistency is so important. So, it's
Dude.
just a tweak to like, okay, I'm looking for H's because that's all I know. When in reality, it's sitting over here. And I just love that
Yeah.
perspective to bring it all together.
So there's a couple things that I got to throw out here. One, if people look at who I am and where I've come from, and by the way, you can ask my historical bosses, Marcus Sheridan, Bob Ruffalo, Remington Begg. The thing that they always wanted me to focus on was measuring. And I'm like, I don't want to measure. I'm just putting love into the world. Like, and I know that it will be at some point measurable, which is, by the way, I always talk about, I want to see the ripples at the end of my life. That's what I'm trying to measure. Not your analytics, not like how fast the community grew. I don't care if it's fast. I just care that it grows 1% better each and every day, right? This is how these things like flow into my brain. And so, like, if you're leading with the purpose, the passion, the love, and that's why you're creating the thing, trust me, your pocketbook, your wallet, it'll get bigger over time because there are just these fundamental principles, um, reciprocity, trust, faithfulness, like relationships that actually end up equaling like good humans. And this is all baked out of like the 10H element, like superhuman framework. But I got to pivot around here, Chris, because you had mentioned self-compassion and grace and the framework. And so I want you to hear this. And by the way, after the show, I'm going to send you the full fleshed out version of what we got. But I think this is important to you, and I think it's important to the viewers and listeners, is grace and self-compassion are vital companions to the superhuman framework. They soften the drive for growth, making it sustainable, balanced, and humane. By integrating these qualities, the framework becomes not just a roadmap for achieving goals, but a compassionate guide for navigating life's ups and downs with kindness, patience, and resilience. The combination of ambition with self-compassion ensures that you not only reach your goals, but also maintain well-being and fulfillment throughout the journey. And Chris, it talks about grace and persistence, self-compassion in setting boundaries, grace in holistic well-being, self-compassion in accountability, grace and adaptability, self-compassion and personal growth, and just grace and balance at a general level. Again, I'll send you that whole thing. And if anybody comments in this, we want to see it too, I'll post the dang thing. I'll put it in a comment or in a post by itself. But like, again, the curiosity and having a framework to build off of to then ask questions that real humans, you, Chris, ask and wonder, like this is the power that we can leverage. And by the way, the only reason that I asked that question, the only reason that I'm thinking in this way is because I'm thinking it from a holistic view. By the way, since this is, again, business content, if you're thinking or have talked about RevOps, if you've ever mentioned upstream and downstream, if you've ever tried to like kill silos, by the way, you've been trying to look at the world from a business level in a holistic way.
And that was the Beyond Your Default coach, I'm
Yep.
guessing.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
He or she spit that out for me.
that's a beautiful thing. Thank you for adding that value to the world. It's going to be something special. But on this topic of holistic, I'm starting to feel like, because like everything tells us, like it's this battle between like holistic and, let's say, focus, I think, where the focus of organizational growth just naturally creates silos, because you've got some people that are really good at a specific thing, and it's like, just stay out of the way because they're making money, or we got to figure out these problems. And like when I like, because I'm always going to think of this in terms of the change management, the transformation that organizations are having trouble making.
Yeah.
And if I say a word like holistic, or I talk about it in a sense, like it's immediately, we can't boil the ocean, we can't do everything. And I'm starting to feel like I didn't anticipate I was going to take it to like the personal growth side of things. Cause I've, loved, uh, I love learning all that stuff. And, like holistic started being used in the personal, health and wellness space, a while ago.
Yeah.
But it's like all of these, they find a way to leave something out,
Mm.
right?
Yeah.
And like when you do that, I'm starting to experience, whether it's, do you understand everything HubSpot can do? No, because you've been very focused on one thing.
Yeah.
Oh, you've been very focused on sales in your organization, so you haven't thought about the impact. Like you're not prepared because you don't know all of the things. And when you are introduced to them for the first time, it's very overwhelming. So if I'm a sales guy, I don't want to overwhelm you, and we start to focus on one thing, but we're setting ourselves up to try to hit the easy buttons that they're just not there.
Yeah.
anymore, right?
Yeah, no, easy buttons are gone. And here's the thing, Chris, as we move forward in these conversations over the next 10, 12, whatever, this just might become a thing. We'll see. Um, I want people to realize, again, we're looking at this from a 3 lens perspective. And the visual that I want everybody that's watching or listening to this to think of this as the human flywheel. Okay. It's because there's 3 pieces, and each one of these pieces, when activated, helps the rest spin in the way that it needs to spin. So I want to unpack this. When I say the 3 pieces or the 3 lenses, I want you to know that for each one of these, I want to take a moment to talk about personal. Uh, you even kind of lean into like the personal growth. Like, so you as an individual human, like, what do you think when you hear the word professional lens, and then an organizational or cultural lens? Okay. So if we take that and we start to have this conversation, if we think about holistic from a personal level, and we ask, well, what the heck is it? Okay. Simple. It's a comprehensive approach to life that considers all aspects of your being, your human being, physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual. Okay, sweet. I know what it is. Why is it important? A holistic perspective makes sure that you have balanced growth and prevents neglect of any of the aspects of your life. By the way, holistic is the outer shell of the 10H element, super, because we're trying to give you the 10 gauges to watch in your life so that it prevents neglect of any aspect of your life that is important. How to implement it: create a balanced routine that includes time for physical activity, mental stimulation, emotional connection, and spiritual practice. Regularly assess your life balance and make adjustments as needed. Integrate practices like meditation, journaling, yoga to align all aspects of your being. Sweet. I have literally a mini roadmap that I can follow if personally I want to start spinning my personal part of the flywheel to have and focus on a holistic life. Now, if we take this and we go, okay, well, what about from a professional level? What is it then? Well, if we think about holistic from the professional level, it's considering the bigger picture in your professional decisions and actions that you're taking. Why is that important? Well, a holistic approach makes sure that your work is aligned with your values. If you're sitting here watching this and you don't have core values, or your company doesn't know what their core values are, meaning employees, and you're not focused on making decisions holistically based on the values that you've put in place for your organization, uh-oh. But with your values, contributes to the organization's mission and considers the impact on the others. Okay. How to implement it: align your work with the company's goals and values. Consider the long-term impact of your decisions on both the organization and your career, and strive for balance by integrating your personal and professional values. How do those live together? By the way, the superhuman framework is my 10 H's, but it also now is the foundation of the culture code that we're building at Sidekick Strategies, because it can be the organization and it can be the human. And now all of a sudden we've got the professional side of this. Jorge, Liz, Kaylee, Noah, Seth, they're like, oh, there's my part of the flywheel as people in the organization. I'm sitting there like spinning the crap out of my flywheel because it's my flywheel. And so what do we end up with? We end up with holistic as a culture or an organization. So what the heck does that mean? What is it? Well, that's taking a holistic approach to business, considering the impact on employees, customers, and the wider community. Because, ladies and gentlemen, we always talk about employees and customers, but there are people on the fringe that still want to hear from us, still want to love us, still want to watch our videos, still want to read our blog articles, just because we bring light to their day. But we never talk about that other element. We're always focused on, like, how come we can't measure that piece? Anyway, so why is that important, that focus from an organizational standpoint? A holistic approach makes sure that the organization's actions are sustainable.
Hmm.
Wow, you mean we don't burn everybody out? You mean we don't become a toxic waste dump? You mean we're actually focused on the employees and the leadership and the customers and the community and anyway, actions that are sustainable, ethical, and aligned with long-term goals. Value over viral. Long-term goals, relationships over transactions. So how do we implement that? Well, we develop and promote a clear company mission that aligns with ethical and sustainable practices. We integrate corporate social responsibility initiatives into the company strategy, and we make sure that decision-making processes consider the impact on all, and I hate this word, but stakeholders. Yeah, meaning employees, communities, customers, leadership. Like, we're thinking about everybody. We're thinking about it from a holistic standpoint. So when you look at this lens, like, how do we implement holistic in the individual humans? How do we implement holistic on a team level? And how do we bring in holistic into our culture? Just that alone, for some of the organizations that are watching this or listening to this, might be like a, oh, oh crap moment.
It is. It's going to be. And that's where like the hardest part, because you got tools and frameworks like what you've created, like the ability to do this, like in the tools and services and guidance that is out there is not the limiting factor, right? The hardest part is deciding that you want to do this. And if you're asking yourself, I don't understand, this new generation, or why can't people just show up and do their job? Why do we have to think about all these new things? Why are customers wanting the things that they want? They never wanted this before. Like, this is the answer, but it's not the answer, but like opening yourself up. um
Ooh.
I remember having like this disconnect when I first became a manager, and like, I had an employee that had like an absenteeism problem, and it's like, okay, I'm listening to resources about personal health and like, what is my role as a manager? Like, I can't tell him how to live his life, right? Which is often the place of like, from a business, okay, there's liability, it's HR, we got to do everything by the book. So we're not touching that, right? Instead, you're kind of abdicating your role as leaders when you do that. Like, everybody in your organization is constantly managing directly or indirectly this balance between personal, professional, and the culture. I think that's a great way to put it, because we always struggle to find ways to say like stakeholders or community, or how do we define our interaction with the greater, like with the rest of the people, right, outside of the business, right? And from a cultural perspective, that makes so much sense to me. um and it's your job as leaders to set up your people for success. When they think about that, make sure they're thinking about it, because if you're not giving them any guidance, like, of course you don't know what they want, when they want it, why they want it, right? You're not opening the door for that. And one of the biggest transformation gaps I see is everybody's like, okay, we just got bought by the new private equity firm, and they want us to grow, so we're going to grow. And
Hmm.
it's like, okay, how many growth mindsets do we have in the business right now? uh oh, not a lot. Oh, leaders of departments don't have growth mindsets. Okay, good luck implementing anything new. uh and you got to find a way to break through that and help those people, either understand that growth might be in their best interest, or if it's not, maybe there's another place they can go and be a fit, somewhere else. And ultimately, as leaders, you can't just keep sitting back on, well, I don't understand.
Yeah. It's funny, Chris, because I don't know if you heard me go, oh, when you said the word open up. And I'm like, ooh, that's a thread I want to pull. And so again, and people are kind of getting a light into how my brain works and how integrated or how augmented I'm making myself with the tools that we can build with the AI that we now have access to. Because I literally, Chris, went over as you were talking and I was listening to you, but I typed in, how does the superhuman framework help humans, teams, and organizations open up their minds and strategies to be human centric? And so, holistic approach, empathy as core value, purpose and passion driven strategies, promoting balance and well being. I'm going to go deeper on this one right here, though. Encouraging, based on what you were talking about, encouraging flexibility and adaptability, supporting individual and collective needs. The superhuman framework promotes flexibility, allowing individuals and teams to adapt to changing needs and circumstances by valuing both personal and collective well-being. The framework encourages a dynamic approach to work and life that is responsive to human needs. Organizations can apply this flexibility in creating policies that allow for work-life balance, diverse work styles, and adaptable strategies that prioritize human factors. This adaptability creates an environment where innovation and creativity flourish because people feel supported and valued. And I'll add in seen, by the way. But then it goes on: embedded humanity in leadership, align strategies with long-term human-centric goals. And Chris, I'm like, man, this is gold. Um, the superhuman framework helps individuals, teams, and organizations open up their minds and strategies to be truly human centric by focusing on empathy, purpose, and holistic well being. It aligns actions and strategies with human values, promotes sustainable practices, and fosters environments where people can thrive. By integrating these principles, organizations can build cultures that prioritize the human experience, leading to greater success, innovation, and long-term fulfillment for everyone involved. Like, can't be an organizational reality. And I want you to think about, like, you might be an awesome company, but how can you become, it's not a word, but awesomer, right? Like, how can you just elevate to the next level for your individual employees, the teams that they're part of, and just the organization? You know what? You know what the superhuman framework's going to do? It's going to shatter Glassdoor for people who adopt it and literally make it work for them and focus on this 3-lens human flywheel. Anyway, I'll get off my soapbox.
Wow, we need you on there, man. It's again, like I always think about, like, just the value of constantly bringing these conversations up in a public forum is just finding, like, the ways that people need to hear this stuff. Because literally, like, it's not a choice. If you want to have a successful business, at some point within the next 5 years, if you don't start dealing with this stuff at this level, you're going to get left behind. We are moving on from the product is so good and your niche is so perfect. Like, that got you here. It's not going to get you there. Like, zero
Yeah.
chance. And you might be awesome because your bottom line looks great, but it's not hard to go look at your frontline teams and see how burned out they are. And it's your, like, the words that I pulled out from what you just said are encourage and support, right? Like, encourage and support. That's what the team needs. And if you're worried about $1,000 laptop that's 5 years old and you got somebody, you're not supporting them,
Yeah.
right? If
Yeah.
you're not encouraging people to at least start thinking on this greater level, having two-way conversations during these town halls and not just presenting at them, right? Getting their take, like you said, feeling seen. Like if you're
Yeah.
not doing that, you're not doing your job.
Yeah, without a doubt. My big takeaway, or I hope my big takeaway for folks is like, listen, humans are going to human, which means humans are going to change. And my question for you is, are you?
Embrace it. This is great, man. I'm excited that I get to spend this time with you every week and help deliver this value to people that need it. And this is the kind of stuff that why we're doing this content is, don't be afraid. Like if you're in this situation, share this, with leadership, with the boss, and just start to like, we don't anticipate everybody's gonna be like, oh, okay, let me call up George. We'll get this right away. But it starts the conversation, right? Don't put this all on yourself to try and move the needle. But understand that there is some, if you're in a shitty situation, and don't think that you're powerless, right, to this. Like, try to start the conversations. That's the goal with a lot of this content. And let's find some opportunity in those conversations. We will see you next week. And in the meantime, let's grow. Have a great day, everybody.
Thanks, buddy.